Yeah, well said. Let me tell you a little story. So, I'm out in Las Vegas for the Nick Diaz Anderson Silva fight. And if I remember correctly, we couldn't get tickets, so we went to the Twisted Kilt or whatever it was. It was me and another guy, my father was ripping off doing business with, and he loved MMA. So it was a perfect way for my father to kind of blind him with that kind of stuff with me. Anyway, so I met a guy that ended at the bar. His name was Nick Barnes. He's behind me. Nick Barnes is a Bellator fighter. Trained out somewhere in downtown San Diego, probably the only main MMA gym there. And I was really bouncing between San Francisco and San Diego at the time. And me and Nick start talking, and right away we recognized that we were, knowledgeable about the sport and actually loved it. And Nick didn't look like a fighter. Why? Nick was very skinny, right? The way fighters need to be, very lean. And Nick was very unassuming. He tucked in his collared shirt and whatnot. And it wasn't long before some big, buff, bearded guy sauntered over to us and started espousing nonsense, right? And I don't remember what it was. It'll be something like Nick Diaz's knockout power or some crazy thing that's just absolutely untrue, right? I don't know that it was that, but it was something like that. And me and Nick both sort of disagree with him, but he just, he kept going with the flow, like, who cares? And that is exactly the type of guy you're talking about, listener. Like just an absolute meathead that has no idea, and whatever narrative he hears from Dana White is the narrative, because after all, Dana White is the UFC in many instances, which makes it unfair for fighters that he might be trying to cheat, and there's a long list of those, right? Or doesn't like personally or whatever. I don't know if you guys remember this, but for a long time, Dana was not really a Nick and Nate Diaz fan. It's kind of like the public took over. I call it the Beavis and Butthead of MMA. People related to them and people loved them. I'll tell you another fighter I think Dana really missed the boat on was Big Country. I think Big Country Nelson could have done great things. And Dana could have made him a world champion. Believe you me, he could have. It's just Dana didn't want the sport to be looked at that way. And they were at the same time fighting for legitimacy as they were fighting to become really popular. And that's not always, a match. So, yeah, man, the MMA attracts all crowds. But this is what I'll say about it. It's because of guys like that guy at the bar that night that MMA is so popular that we get to watch fighting sports all weekend, every weekend if we feel like it. And it's almost too much for me. It is too much for me. So I'm happy with where MMA is. I'm glad there's a lot of clowns talking about it, because that's what makes it just that much more popular. And read my book, Warrior of the Light, if you're really, really interested in it.